a lot of people, what I notice when they get into medical sales, they think they want to be the doctor's best friend, be buddy buddy, and the doctors don't want that. They want you to first provide so much value and be such an asset, then they want to be friends with you, right? Because they
Yep.
see you as someone focused. People want to be around other people who are growing and are
Yep.
smart and have ambition. I applied 15 times to Stryker, kept on applying two or three more times, got another interview, and then 4 interviews later, getting the job at Stryker to be a trauma associate.
And how long did that process take you?
To get into Stryker,
Yeah.
that took.
Welcome back to New to Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and today I'm coming to you all with a very special guest that I feel is going to be extremely encouraging to you all. Today, I have the privilege of having Anthony Muniz on our show, who does commercial real estate investing, and he was in medical device sales. He was able to get in, absolutely crush it, and in under 3 years, go in and start his own business. He worked at Stryker. He was extremely successful, and I want you all to be able to hear from someone who was able to come in, crush it in med device sales, and then be able to go and take all of the things that he learned into another career. Because the reason we're doing this today is I always tell you guys, I hope you come and stay in medical device sales because you can for a long time, but just understand you don't always have to, because it is a great career to come in, absolutely crush it, learn a lot to progress you in your career and your future. So without further ado, Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate you taking the time, and it was good to meet you a couple of weeks ago, and happy to be here.
Yeah, man, it's actually great to meet you as well. Me and Anthony got the opportunity to meet out in Vegas. We went to an entrepreneur group and got to talk up, and I saw that he was wearing a Stryker backpack. So, of course, I went over and talked with him, and that led us to having the conversation of learning about his story and a little bit about his background, which he's going to share with you all, and just learning, what he's doing now and what he learned being in medical device sales. So before we get too far into it, Anthony, can you just give us a little bit of background about like who you are and kind of how you got where you're at today?
Yeah, so I grew up and still live in Illinois. Ended up wrestling in high school. Then wrestling took me over to college in Elmhurst College, which is a small school in the western suburbs of Chicago. From there, I thought I wanted to be a physician's assistant to be exact.
Yeah.
So I was majoring in biology, minoring in chemistry. Did that for about 2 years. Coursework was tough. I cared about wrestling a lot more, labs all day long. And I liked what I was doing, but after shadowing a couple different doctors and doing community service and even being an EMT, I was like, this is a lot of work and a lot of study for not maybe as much money as I'd like to make in my future, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't as passionate. You got to really care about people and have that type of drive. We all have something a little wrong with us, and you have to have a little something different wrong with you to want to do that. It's a gift. But from there, I ended up looking for other things to do. Ended up meeting with a guy who worked at Carl Stores in medical sales,
Yep.
selling scopes. And he was essentially, I met with him at a Starbucks. He told me all about what he did, the type of income he created for himself, and essentially what his day looked like. And I remember he talked about every day was different, and his job was essentially spinning plates on a bunch of different poles at all times. And just as before one's about to fall off, he keeps on spinning them, keeps them all going. And I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. And I mean, the main thing that struck me was the income potential. So I rode my bike. I woke up, fell asleep, woke up, rode my bike to wherever you change your courses, and told them, hey, I want to switch to business with a minor in biology. And I'm going to pursue, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to go be in medical sales. So I ended up doing that. Coursework was a lot easier. Got my minor out of college working at another place, and then ended up applying. It ended up being 19 times. I applied 15 times to Stryker. Got an interview. They interviewed me one time over the phone and then X'd me. Kept on applying 2 or 3 more times. Got another interview, and then 4 interviews later, ended up getting the job at Stryker to be a trauma associate.
Awesome. And how long did that process take you?
To get into Stryker?
Yeah.
That took, so it was 18 or 19 applications, because I remember looking at it the last time, and at the time I had a girlfriend who told me, why do you keep on applying to Stryker? Like, you're not going to get in. Shocker, I'm not with her anymore, right? But then that took about a year and a half.
Yeah.
to actually finally get into striker. And it probably helped. I had some professional experience, and then wrestling of course helped because it was brought some level of tenacity and wanting to
Yep.
go after it, which they liked at striker, and they typically hire athletes and people who are driven. So yeah, it took about a year and a half to finally get into striker as a sales associate, making. It took a year and a half to make 45 grand at
45
striker.
grand. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
100%, man. And that's why I appreciate you being on the program today and just being able to talk to everyone because again, guys, you think I'm joking when I say there's lots of applicants and people take 12 months, 18 months to break into this. As you know, with our program is our average person breaks in about 8 weeks at over $100,000, right? The reason we say that is because if it's going just the application way, you can see where it takes a long time because there's a lot of applications. Like you said, you got on a phone call, they just X'd you and they don't know anything about you, even though you could come in and you could crush it. And then they're just at even a trauma position. They're like, hey, 45K, let's have you grind for 6 to 8 to 12 months. Eat it. You got to prove it to us. Then you can actually go make the money. And just so you all know, that's why we do what we do is we want to help you guys go through that process and know it. So it doesn't take as long. But going back into it, Anthony, is like the one thing I want to just touch base on because we get so many listeners that want to do biology. They want to be a doctor and stuff. Then they start doing some shadowing and they're like, oh, I deal with people who don't really like me. They're not actually that passionate to see me. I actually get yelled at most of the time by human beings. And then I just paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into a lot of debt to then have a high paying job that I have to do to work hourly to then go and see these patients because I have to pay off all my debt. And that's the reason I'm just saying that for everyone listening, if you're considering med device sales, if you're in med device sales, but you have friends out there, is that's what's beautiful about medical device sales is being able to be with the surgeons, talk with them, be able to help show that you can make a difference and also the income potential. Because like you said, a PA, if we're crushing 130, maybe 150, right? And it's like, we just got someone started, Kyle, he started at over 170K for his first position with Medtronic, right? And it's like, again, guys, that's not to brag. That's just to show you the potential earning. And the last thing just to touch base on is what you said, Anthony, is there is nothing wrong with wanting more money and there's nothing wrong with wanting a better life for yourself. And the reason I'm just touching base on that is because when people hear that you were at college and they're like, hey, I don't really love this and I could probably go make more money. We live in a world a lot of times where people demonize money. And now if you want to make more money, it's you're greedy, you're a bad person. Rich people are horrible human beings. And what I just want to put out there for everybody is like, you were an athlete. I played basketball at a small NAIA school in Iowa. And it's just like when you become like an athlete and you've actually seen yourself go from not being that good at something or like you were good, but then you got even better, you see the progression that you can actually do with your life. And so it's like, why not aim for the highest possibilities instead of just settling for mediocrity? And so I just want to touch base and just highlight that for you because, man, that's so cool to see. Hey, you knew even in college, I'm not in love with this. Why would I keep going through all this stuff? And then go through that aspect. So just wanted to highlight that. And then, so for you, you got into med device sales. You got in as a trauma associate making $45,000 a year starting out at Stryker. Tell us about the grind, man, because most people will never understand the grind. So I would love for someone who lived it firsthand to be able to share what was your like the first, let's just say even 3 to 6 months as a trauma associate with Stryker.
yeah, dude. Oh my God. Like I got story. We all got stories if you've been through it, especially being in trauma. So I joined a team that was covered the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Was where I came in as an associate. The rep who ran that group was at one point top 10 in the country for Stryker trauma. So he was very intense. He had 3 kids. He was, driven by his kids, his family. Very, very intense guy. So I came in kind of from a different job. I wasn't the same level of intensity to where if he texted me, if he called me, I need to get back to him within the next couple seconds. Learning all the equipment was like you leave the day like so exhausted from, you're learning about these tiny little screws, these giant nails, all different sizes, learning anatomy over again.
Yep.
Understanding where everything is in every single hospital. And then, they're hiring you not because they just want to have a bigger team. They're hiring you because they need you.
Yeah.
Like, they're so busy that they need someone. So they expect you, or they need you more likely to come in, learn everything in the span of a couple weeks, and then be covering your own cases. And then not only covering those cases, but making it so those doctors are satisfied because they're now bringing in this, 24-year-old kid to to cover their surgeries where they may be used to that professional rep or that superstar rep who knows everything they like to use, down to the specific screws they use, down to, they don't do it this way, they do it that way, this special drill, all those little intricate things that you need to know from surgeon to surgeon. And they need you to come in and do that for them, because that's the only way that they can sustain and even grow their business.
Bam. That one thing I just want to touch, I knew you were going there because you understand it, but that's what most people miss. Most people that are trying to break into med device sales, you all think, I just want to be in med device sales. But what you miss on the other side, especially like orthopedics and a lot of these 1099 and distributors, the reason they're hiring is because they've maxed out their potential. And now they're bringing someone on who can at least maintain the business so they can go grow the business and bring in more revenue, go get more doctors. But with that said, they're now giving you a lot of times hundreds of thousands to possibly millions of dollars worth of money every year to now have you not mess up with a doctor or a surgeon. And all it takes is you not knowing a couple things and you not being good at your job to have that rep lose what it took them 3 years to build. 2 years to build. And so that's what I want everyone to hear, because you're 100% right, man. Like I have friends that are distributors. They have it. This is the number one concern is everyone who's coming in thinks they're just breaking into med device sales and going to hang out with doctors. But it's like your job is to run the trays. Your job is to be an expert at the product that you're selling, because you're there to be the expert and maintain it so that rep can free themselves to go find new business and do more to grow more revenue inside of their business.
You hit it. It's actually very refreshing, because I haven't spoken to someone in a while who gets it to the level that you do. So it's like, just to relive it and think about it, it's like giving me chills.
Man, and well, I want to just say this. I love meeting people in trauma, because the thing I always just tell people is so many people are afraid of hard work. They're just afraid. They just don't want to do it. And what I always say is we talk to a lot of human beings, and they're always like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And then I'm like, great, go take a job for trauma at 45,000 and work 12-hour plus days and do it for 6 to 12 months. And they're like, well, I actually, and then they come up with the excuse. It has to be cozy job. It has to be at this much. And it has to be in the position they want it. Well, is it in Austin, Texas? Or is it in San Diego? Like, I need it in my area, right? The reason I'm just sitting this and saying this to outside people, because this doesn't even matter if you're in med device sales or trying to break into med device sales. People tell me they're willing to do it all, and then they actually aren't willing to do it all. They're willing to do what's convenient for them. And so the reason I just want to say that is I absolutely love talking with trauma people, because I'm like, all you have to do is do it for 6 to 12 months and just eat it. And then from there, you in trauma, here's the thing, and you know this, most book of business usually takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. But if you stay in long enough, you will make a great living in the trauma life. The only thing is you have no life, and now you got to go find other people who want to have no life and do that aspect of it. That's why I see a lot of people have a short lifespan in trauma, usually under 5 years. But the reason I'm saying that is with people we've even gotten in, I'm like, hey, go crush it for 12 months in trauma, 9 months. Can you eat it for that long? Because what you just said, when you have to know the screws, you have to know all the nails, you have to know all the different anatomy in trauma, you are now such an asset that I always talk about this. When one of my job offers I got was with Wright Medical, who's now part of Stryker, who's doing shoulder arthroplasty. And it's like, right. You think you're out of your mind if I went trauma, that I wouldn't be able to go do just shoulders. Like I just did the broad spectrum of it. Now I could just go niche down on just hips, just foot and ankle, just shoulder, whatever I want to. That's the what people miss. And sometimes they're not willing to just eat it for a little bit. Now, this, just so you guys know, everyone out there, that's not me saying, hey, go take a job for $45,000 and just eat it if you can, because again, we're helping people go. But I will sit here and tell you is most people, I just want everyone to hear, are saying they are willing to do whatever it takes, and then they're not. And then that's the difference between you, man, because you and I talked, and just where you're at, even in your own business, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes, do more work than anybody else. And even when there's a lot of stuff, you're the one carrying it all. So you learned that you had to be a professional right away, and you had to deal with professionals right away. Can you kind of talk about what that journey was like from you going from like, hey, getting hired as a young kid to now working with people that are saving people's lives and putting things back, and doctors that are, and surgeons that are super intense, that if you don't know what you're talking about, they might even throw you out of the room?
Yeah, so it started as the associate, and the guy that I was ahead of, it was not like what you'd imagine like a corporate job to be, like when you think of like this large company, right? This was, you're there, you're in the trenches, you have to perform. And every time that I made a mistake, I mean, he let me know. Like he would yell at me. I'd be in SPD downstairs in the corner. He'd yell at me for something wrong, or if I missed something, or if I forgot something, because there's so many things happening at once. Holes in trays, stuff missing, not knowing what peel packs you have. If you're in medical sales, you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yep.
Really, it was the first 6 months of just getting yelled at. And I've always been someone who's been driven and focused, and I wrestled, and I always thought I always knew I was a hard worker as far as like just hard work and putting in effort. But when I got into medical sales, it was just a whole different level of focus, attention to detail, and resilience where you may, you're on call. So you're working all day for your cases that are scheduled. And then you may go in for 2 o'clock in the morning. You may have a 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you may only go home for 2 hours and get sleep and then be back at the hospital for a scheduled case at 7 in the morning.
Yep.
So it was the combination of having no sleep, having, even though I didn't agree with the way he taught, someone who was very dedicated themselves and like very good at it, to kind of straighten up. And within probably 6 months, started getting the hang of it. But I mean, he was at such a high level that he was constantly like drilling into me, right? And my partner with him, who was an associate with me, was actually from the military, and he had been doing it for a year. So they already had their whole situation up. I'm the new third guy. And the way it ended up working out is we just got to a certain point where I finally got up to speed with them, and I started bringing in some new business for them.
Yep.
And I could tell that, he was running the ship. It wasn't going to be so much room for me. And I was kind of just brought in to stay an associate, let him keep on doing his thing, cover it while he can grow the business. And at this point, I'm thinking in my mind, if I'm going to do all this work and all this focus, and I'm going to be working from, pretty much nonstop, missing holidays, missing birthdays. There was a point where my dad went in for his first heart attack, and I was in a case, and I had to, luckily I got someone to cover it for me. And the hospital that he had went to was not too far from the one I was at. But those are like the real things where you have to be fully dedicated, and your level of focus and attention and just ability to keep on going needs to be 10x from where it was. And I mean, for anybody, like, whatever your background is, unless you were in medical sales or in some type of military operation, like this is very much so like a military operation, the way that it's run. At this point, when I finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, I feel like I know what I'm doing, I want to be in my own territory. They had just got rid of, one of the guys had just left, and then another one had retired, and the Chicago territory, which was the biggest territory in Illinois, had just opened up. And I'm like, oh, okay, like this looks like an opportunity. They ended up grabbing a guy from Synthes, so they brought him into the territory, and then he needed a rep to partner with because it was a big territory.
Yep.
So then I got the opportunity. I talked with the sales manager at the time, who also came from Synthes, and we had a good relationship. Ended up giving me a shot in that territory, and that was when I went from being an associate to finally being a full-blown 1099 rep with another experienced rep. So at this point I had a year, maybe just under a year of experience, and then he had around 5 years of experience, and we had all of downtown Chicago, and then up all the way to Skokie, and then we ended up getting as far as like Waukegan and up to the border of Wisconsin.
I don't think people understand how big that really is, especially when you're doing trauma. But just so you guys know, that's absolutely massive. But yeah, a couple things, man, I just want to touch on is like, first off, I hope people understand, welcome to why a lot of times they say they like athletes, right? Because they know athletes can be coached. If you ever did athletics at the college level, you will know that if someone rips you, that is just an everyday life of them getting better. But what I always talk to the team about, and our people that we talk to, is a lot of times you're going to meet leaders that's how they are, because they know if they rip on you, it's going to make you better, and you're going to eventually learn from it. But I will sit here and tell you, no different than when I played basketball. I always tell this story of like, hey, when I would go make a good pass and like do an assist, or I hit a three in high school, I had a really encouraging coach who was like, yeah, great job. Awesome. I remember going to college and I go do the exact same thing, and they're screaming at me to get back on defense, or they're yelling at me because the pass was just a couple inches to the left instead of right in the pocket. You know what I mean? And so there was just always that expectation, because I also learned I'm now not playing for fun. I'm actually getting paid on scholarship to do it. So they expect you to do the right thing. It kind of goes to the same thing when you guys get into med device sales. That's number one. But number two, I want to put out there for everyone. Mine and Anthony's experience were way different at Medtronic and Stryker, Ortho, and I was in GYN. The reason I'm just saying that is like, just so you guys know, mine was not the drill sergeant. I didn't have people screaming at me. It was a lot softer. So I just don't want you guys to, like, if you're brand new, being like, oh my God, I'm going to get tackled while I'm in this industry and all this stuff. It's one of the things we kind of help you guys navigate. But again, I just want you to know, though, those are the things, and why I just sit here and tell you it's why Anthony's so successful. Because when you can go through that, you can put up with that, and you can actually learn in that environment. There's nothing that's going to bring you down, make you cry, make you do what you can't do. And then you're going to be successful anywhere from that. So I just want to touch on that. And then again, crushing it for a year to then give yourself the opportunity to go actually be a full line rep and make the real money, do all the stuff, partnership. Absolutely love that. And can you kind of just talk about what was that transition like, going from that associate sales rep to where now it's like, hey, I'm a full line rep. This is my business. And now I'm not just kind of maintaining business, I'm growing business, and I'm actually going to be directly affected with the business that I'm going to grow.
It was a big adjustment too. Like I said, I had a really tough guy in the first territory, so that kind of gave me a good base on how I needed to be in the OR, what I needed to do to get more business. And then the rep that I was running the territory with, he had already 5 years of experience, but this was a brand new company for him, brand new doctors. So it was kind of a good mix of us both not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So we became really close and made a good team out of that, because we were both coming in there fresh with two different backgrounds. So a lot of it was really just going from, soldier to general, where you are essentially, you're looking at every day, the day before, to make sure everything is figured out. If something messes up, you're not going to have your boss yelling at you. You're not going to make any more money. Your clients aren't going to want to use you. And on top of that, like going back to the clients not wanting to use you, I mean, all these other reps who are in that OR, they're just waiting for you to mess up. They are physically waiting for you outside of the room, checking to see if the case is going well.
They're like vultures. Vultures just circling the dead.
Right. So that was the thing too. It was like a sense of like, okay, this is my territory. I'm going to run this the way I know it can be run. And then at the same time, I'm going to keep my head down, keep my face straight. And I know that these guys are watching, and they're seeing this as a new opportunity to take all the business that Stryker had in Chicago. Because, I mean, from the outside looking in, you just had two reps who were there for 30 years, both named Ben and Ben, who ran Chicago for 30 years before that. And they finally are out. So huge opportunity for all the other companies. So essentially coming in basketball, playing defense, and then, going for the easy plays. But I mean, just essentially making sure you didn't mess up, and making sure that everything that they messed up from before, things that the doctors didn't like about the reps before, we tried to fix that ahead of time. And a lot of people, what I noticed when they get into medical sales, they think they want to be the doctor's best friend. And, they're trying to just be buddy, and the doctors don't want that. They want you to first provide so much value and be such an asset. Then they want to be friends with you, right? Because they see you as someone who is growing, has a growth mindset, someone who is focused. And I mean, people want to be around other people who are growing and are smart and have ambition. So that was the lesson I kind of learned before. So when I got into this new role, it was nothing new. I told myself every day that I was an expert, that I gave myself this persona that I was someone who was doing this for years. So I didn't come in all giddy like the new guy in the streets.
Come on.
And then essentially talking to doctors and keeping it very professional, seeing what could be done better that was done from the previous two reps. Like, what do you guys need? How can I help? Essentially, how can I add value to what you're doing? Because what you're doing is really important part. I know you're familiar with this equipment and these products, and I just want to make sure that whatever you have or whatever you need, you have it, and you don't have to second guess it.
Come on.
So essentially, it was earning their trust, just trying to bring the new guy mentality is like, I'm not going to mess up. I'm not this lazy rep who's been doing this for 20 years. I'm here to show them that I can be better. And then, I mean, running around like crazy, running into hospitals, running out, and really just letting action speak in the first probably 6 months, not really trying to be best friends or or learn what their favorite beer to drink is, or
Dude, come on, man. Just so you know, I smile and laugh because I didn't do ortho, but like all I hear is ortho. And just so you know, the worst advice we ever get is like when we have our people trying to break in is from ortho reps, because they literally just sit here and say, well, just know his beer and go hang out and go have happy hour. And I'm like, that works until you screw one surgery up and then you're not invited out to beer afterwards. You know what I mean? And so like for you, you're 100% right, is every single doctor, they want to be on a peer-to-peer level. And have you ever heard, like, just for everyone listening, ever heard of the quote, game respects game? That's what they're looking for. They're an expert in what they're doing. They want to make sure they have an expert in what the other person's doing on their team, because they don't care if they like you. They don't care if your sister went to the same college they did. They care about the patient on the table, because at the end of the surgery, guess who gets to go see them? Those surgeons do. And then if you don't know what you're talking about, you screw up or something affects that game, now they have to go tell them that they messed up because a rep didn't do their job. And that was on their team, right? So I just always want to say that is, Anthony, you're 100% on, because that's how, like, everyone's always asking how I changed the lowest performing territory in the nation to top 10 my first year at Medtronic. I didn't do anything crazy. I just was an expert on what I did. And the craziest thing, everyone's like, how'd you do it? My top docs, I took over. My top docs, they didn't even care about my name and didn't even know my name till about month 4, when I would actually provide so much value in a surgery. I'll never forget, one of it was we had an introverted uterus. And so it means that it couldn't just slide in like it usually does. I said, hey, doc, because of how our scope's made, make sure you turn it upside down. It will slide in easy, no problem. Happened ever since that day. Jacob, what do you like to do for fun? Jacob. Before that, she didn't even talk to me. It wasn't until I provided value to make that surgery better that she's like, oh, he actually knows what he's talking about. He's not just some rep that comes in and just smiles, right? And so I just want to put that. Number 2, actions will always speak louder than words. That's all I ever tell people, because every rep, every person always tells me I'm going to crush it in med device sales. Every person tells me they're going to break into med device sales. And most people will never do it. We all know this just in life. Most people will also tell you they're going to go wrestle in college. They won't. Most people will tell you they're going to go crush it out somewhere. They won't, because it's a lot easier to say than to do. But one thing you said that I do the exact same thing. One of the conferences I was at, got the opportunity to listen to Todd Herman. And if you guys don't know who Todd Herman is, he's a mindset coach. He actually worked with some of the top people that you've ever heard of. But so just so you guys know, he helped make the Mamba mentality, worked with Kobe Bryant during that time, and he's the one who helped create that. And what he talks about is becoming the person you need to become before you're that. And so he talked about during his business, he wasn't a confident salesperson, all this stuff, but he's like, I wonder if I acted like I did, how it would go. And then he would go put on glasses. And then when he would go sell his business, he would act as whatever guy who was the best sales rep and do all this stuff. And the reason I'm just saying that is one thing that Anthony did that he mentioned, that one reason he would have success right away, and what I've done, don't come in as the new guy being like, I'm green, I don't know what I'm doing, hope it works out. It's, I'm acting like I'm a veteran in here. I'm going to run it like a veteran, and I'm going to have the standards of it. And even though I may not know it, I'm going to hold myself to that standard, because I think that's the biggest thing that people miss is just listening to a podcast last night while I'm working out. If you want to be somebody, you have to become that person before you're them. Right? If you want to be an entrepreneur who does whatever, if you want to be a sales rep who makes $1 million, if you're whatever you want to do, you have to act as that person before you're already them, because you can't get it if you're not them. And I think that's something you said, man, that I just want to touch on for everybody listening, because the amount of times I hear people saying, I'm just going to shoot for the hip. I'm just going to kind of wing it and figure it out. And it's like, you're never going to win, especially like you said, man, you came over a territory that had 20 years. All anybody was thinking about was, we just got a brand new territory to go take a bunch of money from all these new guys. And not only did you have to play defense, you actually had to play even offense, because you had to have those same surgeons trust you and like you. And then you had to still go grow the company. And so I just wanted to touch base on how amazing job that had to be for you, but like how challenging, but also how fun it had to be, because you learned probably more skills in that first 6 months than you probably had in the whole prior year.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, the things that my partner and I learned during that period, and just the people that we had to become, like you mentioned, being that person before you are that person. I mean, it changes everything you do moving forward. Yep. The amount of intensity you bring to even the smallest task, and you mentioned something about shooting from the hip. Even now, and it's something I brought from medical sales. Like when we're in real estate, if we're having a call and we're going to broker call it a 24 unit apartment building, and the commission is going to be 100 grand. Like I'll see guys who are new come in and just say, oh, I'm just like, okay, so you're ready to call them? I'm like, they say, yeah, I'm ready. So you know what you're going to say. They're like, okay. And then knowingly, I know that they don't know. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. Like, leads a little cold. Let's see what they do. They pick up the phone. They just start shooting from the hip, and it goes terrible, right?
Yep.
They get up, and I'm just sitting there like, and they're like putting themselves on me, like, what do I say next?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll help out as I can, but as the call ends, they're like, yeah. I'm like, that wasn't what they said you knew you were going to say. And they're like, well, I just figured I knew what I wanted to say, but I just want to just wing it. I'm like, would you ever, if someone had a pile of money in front of you, $100,000 in a bucket, and they said, all right, as long as you do well on this call, I'm going to slide this over to you and you get to keep it all. Would you ever go in and wing it? No, you would be like, you'd look at the money and you'd be like, okay, I'm going to know what I'm going to say. If they say this, I'm going to say this. If they do this, I'm going to do this. And you're going to find a way to get that bucket over to your side of the desk.
Yep.
And that was what I learned in medical sales. It's like, you won't ever go into a case not prepared. You won't ever do something that you're just going to wing it and hope that you're Michael Jordan, right? You're just going to go up and dunk the basketball because you think you're that good. That's not going to work. Like, you need to be prepared for everything. Think about everything before it happens. What are you going to do if X, if Y happens? How are you going to go from there? And if you have all that planned out, things will happen that you didn't anticipate.
Yep.
But you'll be so prepared with everything else that when you do wing it for that small, period of whatever that event is, it's going to be a hell of a lot better because you're already in the zone.
Yep.
And you can freestyle from there.
That hits it out perfectly, because I just want to put this out there for everybody. What you just said is, I think this is the thing we talk about the most. Is one of the things we help with is mindset, and going from, you from a $45,000 associate running trades to you now making rep, being six figures and running a territory and protecting it. That's two different people. And most people just think, oh, Jacob, no, it's just once I'm ready, I'll make 100K. You don't just happen to make 100K. You don't just happen to make 200 grand. It takes a certain person. You have to do certain things. And again, exactly what you said, it was absolutely beautifully stated. If someone put 100 grand in front of you, these jobs out there and all the stuff, are you going to just wing it? Because that's what many of you guys do on sales calls, on trying to get hired, on all this stuff. I'll just figure it out. You want to know why you always lose? Because guess what pros don't do? Like I just posted this in our group. Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice till they don't get it wrong. You got it right once and you're like, yes, I got past one interview. I got one doctor to say yes. The pro already knew what they were going to say. They knew 7 different objections, and they knew exactly what was going to do, and they knew exactly where to lead the person to get the deal that they wanted to do. Because that's what a good sales rep does. They know how to ask really good questions to learn exactly what they need to do, and they already have the outcome they need. They just have to have different scenarios on what they're going to bring. And one of the things that come is actually having that experience. So I just wanted to just put you out on that. Like, that's such good advice to everyone listening, because we get that all the time. But again, going from 45K to 100 to 200 to 300 plus $1,000, you guys, it has nothing to be like, oh, I just need more money. It has to be the person you become, because more money, more problems, more responsibility. It's a true thing. And most of you don't understand that. And then you guys all are winging it from the hip. And then you're also the same people complaining why you don't crush it in the industry. And you're also, just so you guys know, are taking advice from people doing the exact same thing. And then you're like, well, Johnny's been in for 4 years and he makes 130K. And it's like, great. There's reps making over 200 in their first year. So Johnny probably is not crushing. And now that's who you're taking advice from. So I just always want to put that out there. Now, here's the more fun part. I'm going to ask you one quick question about med device sales, and then we're going to go into a little more what you're doing. But one thing I want to know is, what did you enjoy the most about being in medical device sales?
The thing I enjoyed the most about medical device sales, besides the income that was brought with it, of course, was it's very much like a winner's environment. I mean, you're winning sales, you're winning cases. I like that aspect of it, and winning the surgeon's trust. Once you get to that point, the money, all that stuff is great, but that feeling of like, I've finally done enough. I've showed enough of who I am to where this person trusts me and they even want me here. They ask about me. That was a super satisfying part because, first of all, doing the cases and making the money once you earn one of their trusts, they all talk to each other. You start making money a lot easier.
Yeah.
But it's just a sense of like, okay, within a span of a year or 2 years or however long you're in it, you have gained enough knowledge to now this person who's gone to school and practiced for, 15, 20 years to where they have a level of respect for you. And that is, I mean, it's satisfying. That
Yeah.
part of gaining the trust and these people who are, putting it on the line because their jobs are just as hard too. They're on call. They're in high pressure situations. Sometimes they're getting sued because they messed up on a surgery. Like when
Yep.
we mess up, it's on them, right? And that's why they're so upset with us. But the amount of pressure that they have to go through, and then for them to have a level of trust and respect for you and want you to come back over and over again, that was a really satisfying part of the job, to where you finally start getting respect in the OR, and then from there it's throughout the whole entire hospital.
Yep.
And being valued in that, because you really are helping people once you get to the point where, like you said in Medtronic, where you were providing large amounts of value. And now, I mean, that was a super satisfying part. And then even more satisfying is when you do that, how much easier everything becomes. All this pushing this rock, up the hill, and now it's so much easier because, first of all, you've got the training down, so you're doing the right things every day, and then all these other opportunities that you weren't even trying to get start falling into your lap.
Yep. Yep. Dude, I think that's such a good point of like, first off, I want everyone to hear that is the difference you can make in this industry is absolutely amazing. Like there's nothing, like I've always said, when a doctor comes up and hugs you and says, because of you, that person's alive. Like it doesn't matter how much money you make, there will never be a feeling that I will ever have that replaces that one. That's number one. Number two, though, I want you guys to also understand and really hear when Anthony's saying all of this is just making sure that you guys know that those people are human beings too, that you're like, hey, you're going, but pushing that rock up the hill, it takes time, right? Like I always just tell people my first 6 to 12 months, I literally closed my eyes and said, it doesn't exist. It's just work, 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 become a professional, because everyone will always tell me work-life balance. But what you guys have to understand is there's seasons of work-life balance, because you might have to go and be an expert learn this stuff so you can be an expert. Because guess what? The year I grinded the first 12 months isn't the same year I had to go the next 12 months. You didn't have to do all the training. There's new challenges, new things you're learning, but it's not as intense. You're not putting in the hours. You're not having to know, because you already know the scrub techs. You already know the surgeons. You already know the preferences. You already know the leads. You already know the people. You already know how to get your scrubs, for God's sake, and how to even just check in and do everything. But in the first 6 months, you don't. And you're trying to learn the process. You already have relationships built. It's the compounding effect. So I want everybody to hear that when you go into it. Now, a question that I want other people to hear, because I want everyone to hear my heart. I always tell you guys, when I got into med device sales, I never said I'm going to go do it for 20 years. Now, here's the thing. I love it and I'm going to be in it for a long time. I have a lot of people and I have a lot of relationships in it, and we get to help people do it every day and change their lives. And it's the best. But I also tell every single person I ever work with, I don't expect you to sit here and tell me you're going to be here for 30 years. Because think about COVID. Y'all had plans and then that happened and then it all switched then, right? So we'll have plans, but things go. Anthony's someone who came in, crushed it, did really well, and was able to take the earnings from that to go do another business. And the reason I'm saying that is, Anthony, the first thing is, what was the moment you started being like, maybe medical device sales isn't it? Or was it always the goal to go into real estate, but this was your vehicle to get there?
Yeah, great question. So I really didn't know I was going to exit out of medical device sales until, so I started making money, of course. I had my new territory. The checks started coming in, started feeling good.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to start buying real estate as soon as I was out of college. I was reading a lot on real estate. I didn't want to be a broker at that time. So medical sales was something that was a lot more interest to me. Once I started getting enough money to then start buying, so I bought my first 4-unit, lived in the units, and then 3 months later, because of medical sales, I was able to buy another one right across the street. So I bought 2 buildings and I was cash flowing on those properties, and I actually really enjoyed it. Making the units nice, increasing the rents, seeing the money flow in, and then building the equity on the buildings too. Kind of opened up my eyes to, okay, this is a business that I could see, compounding well for me, and I enjoy it. But it was a slower process. I bought those 2 buildings, kept on going with Stryker, and seeing how easy the money came in from that, on top of trauma just being trauma and wearing on you over time. I think if I was in more of like a Medtron, like a role that was more specialized, I would probably still be in medical sales.
Yeah.
Um, I'm happy that I went the path that I did, but after buying those two buildings and then essentially just going through that grind every day and having no sleep and not being able to see my family or my friends or anything like that, it just, I felt like I came to a point where I was making the money that I was chasing after in this industry, but the satisfaction I was getting from doing the day to day wasn't the same as it was when I was getting my new territory, when I just got the job and when I got
Yeah.
my new territory, when I was gaining trust. Just did it for a certain point, and like I said, my dad was having health issues, and that was a big factor too. As I wasn't seeing my family, I felt like I was missing out on being with my dad for the last couple months, at least that I thought he was going to live. So those were big triggers, and I don't know what went over me, to be honest with you. I think it was a lot of early mornings and a lot of just taking care of everything. We started hiring people too, which helped.
Yeah.
But one day I remember driving to Cook County Hospital early in the morning and just, going to the parking garage and just parking and sitting there and being like, I don't feel like this is the right thing for me right now anymore. Um, and I don't know how long the transition is going to take.
Yep.
Because I was trying to see what other paths there could be in medical sales, and it just seemed like it was going to be a little bit harder to get because I didn't have guys like you that knew how to navigate these systems. And if I would have known you guys in the beginning, probably would have not gone into trauma, in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a little bit easier to get into because less people want it.
Yeah.
But even then, it was still hard to get into. So essentially, one day I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I let my partner know like I was feeling this way. And after a couple weeks, the feelings I had multiplied. And I'm not someone that when I'm really out of something, I don't want to stay in it because I know it's going to drag down other people around me. And it's better to get out of something sooner rather than later.
Come on.
If it feels like it's not for you. So essentially from that day, I had a bag of money in my bank account and I put in my week's notice to my partner, a couple weeks notice, and said, "Hey, I'm going to be going full time into real estate. Um, I appreciate the relationship we built. I feel really bad because we're building all this relationship with these doctors and we're building something special together. But he understood. I mean, he wasn't happy about it, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But he understood. So from there, essentially, exited medical sales and just started buying houses and flipping them on my own. And that was a whole experience in its own, taking that whole work ethic from medical sales into just being on my own, looking for properties, trying to find contractors, all this stuff. It went really well for two properties. And then I did a third property and it went terrible. Like all the money I'd saved for medical sales had essentially drained to negative 100,000 from this one property that I thought was a good deal. And things just went wrong right after another, right after another, right after another. Ended up going, and this one was in a different state in Texas. Ended up sleeping in the house for 3 weeks on the ground, getting bitten up by bugs and all this stuff, hiring different contractors to fix all these mistakes that were done really poorly. Needed to make money somewhere else, right? I couldn't go back to medical sales. It just wasn't going to work out with doing these projects at the same time as doing that.
Yep.
So I joined a small commercial brokerage group where we were mostly buying and then flipping properties. Learned from a very smart guy at that company. Met my partner Joey, and literally from, I guess, the day that I quit Stryker to being on my own was about a year, and then joining the brokerage was about 6 months. So when I first joined, it was just me. I didn't know anything about commercial brokerage or anything like that, selling apartment buildings and buying them and then reselling them. And just take the same principles I learned from Stryker. Just every day, as long as I can, learn everything I can, the shortest amount of time, treat everything as if like your life depended on it. Dire stakes, the smallest detail, planning out calls, learning everything I can in the shortest amount of time.
Yep.
And then 6 months later, I got my first deal, and I partnered with Joey, who we run the shop together now.
Yep.
And as soon as we met, I essentially was a drill sergeant to him, like my rep at Stryker was to me. He picked up within 6 months. And then we were doing so well that we just decided to branch out. And back to the debt thing, we made enough money in the next 6 months to pay everything off, get rid of all the problems, and then start being in the green again. And now, 6 months after that, started our own shop, and now we hired some people, and now things are going really well.
Now you guys are crushing. And dude, it makes me so happy to see. And just want you to know a couple things that you said that were so good is like, one of the things I'm the same way. And many type A people, many athletes, like we know when your heart's not into something, it doesn't do any good, whether it's a relationship, it's a work relationship, it's a job, whatever it is. If you're not all in, it's time to go. And the reason I'm just saying that is most people are really uncomfortable having those uncomfortable conversations, but your partners and people that you work with, they're never going to be happy. You just gave them more work, whatever it is. But they also will respect you way more because they would be way more frustrated if you start slacking because you're not all into it over the next 2, 3, 4 months as well, still giving them more work at the time. Right. So I want to throw that out there. Number two, one thing I just want everybody to hear is, I know so many people in med device sales that they do real estate on the side, right? Like they stay in med device sales. Like we said, if it wasn't trauma, you might still be in it, right? And just the fact of like, I know people working under 40 hours a week, making over 200-300K. And it's like, okay, so they go put that money and they buy a property a year, right? And then they do that thing. So I just want everyone to know is like, most people will just tell you it's black or white. It has to be this, but just understand there's a bunch of different things you can do. You could still be in med device sales and do those investments, or you can do what Anthony did, save up a bunch of cash because you can make really good money in med device sales and be a young person and do that. And then go after a dream that you really want. Just so you all know, my goal, get into med device sales for 2-3 years, save up enough, go buy a gym, go back to being a personal trainer full time. That was when I originally started doing all this. Then life changes and then everything else changed, right? So many times you guys are going to hear people and people are like, you have to do this for the rest of life. You have to do all this stuff. What I want you guys to just see from this podcast and what the whole goal was with this is just like two young people that did med device sales who haven't listened to everybody else and still are being able to be successful in different ways, right? Now, again, I always say this, success is whatever you guys want to claim it as, if it's financial, whatever, freedom, whatever it is. But the one thing I'll just sit here and tell you is there's a lot of people in med device sales for 20-30 years. Awesome. They rocked it, they crushed it, and they loved it. And I love that. But there's also a lot of people in there for 10, 15, 20 years that hate their life. And then they're going to go put you down and say, this is the only way and treat you like crap and do all the stuff. And just understand it's not true. And you're not a bad person if you do something and you jump to another company because they pay you 50 to 100 grand more and you like it, right? You're not a bad person if you did med device sales for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and you decided to be like, hey, I can go do something else, right? One of the guys I follow, if you guys don't know anything about like First Form is a huge nutrition brand, hundreds of millions of dollars, huge facilities out of St. Louis. Well, Sal, one of the guys, I used to follow him all the time. He was in med device sales before. And then his brother did that. And then they asked if you want to come in. And so you learn so much being in med device sales because you guys are running your own territories. You're actually learning how to run the business, right? When Anthony's Stryker Chicago, that's his company. He's just under that umbrella. When I was Medtronic, GYN, Arizona, it was Jacob that they looked at. But I was under the umbrella, and you learn how to actually run a business. So understand, if you're in med device sales, you guys know how to run a business, or maybe you don't want to run a business, because I will sit here and tell you, if you want way less stress, you want to actually have a way better work-life balance and all this stuff, have a W-2 job that pays you 6 figures and then go do some side hustles that give you some side cash that pay you another 6 figures. And now you get a car, insurance, 401k, you make 6 figures, live off that. And then every dollar you make on all the side investments, real estate, anything else, that's just fun money, retirement, or whatever you want to do. Lived both of them. And I can sit here and tell you, once you go all in on another business, yeah, you can make a little bit more money, but also just understand everything's your fault. Everything's your problem. You have to deal with it. If you have employees who don't perform, you still pay for it. I tell people all the time now, even with companies, a lot of times we make way more money and I make way less because that's part of running the company. So I just want to throw that out there. But this is why I wanted to put that out there, is to be encouraging. Now, Anthony, real quick, because I really want to just learn more. Can you tell people what your company is and what you guys really do and what you specialize in?
Awesome. Yeah. So we're AJ Commercial Group. We're based out of Homer Glen, Illinois, which is in the south suburb of Chicago. Essentially, what we do is we reach out to owners and look for people who are looking to sell their property. And this is mostly in Chicagoland, but really anywhere in the Midwest when it comes to above 100 units. So the day-to-day looks like we have a team reaching out to people, seeing who's interested in selling. From there, the sellers will, give the financial information. We'll learn more about the properties, and then we'll underwrite the deals ourselves. So we'll see what's the return on investment, what's the cash on cash, where does this property stack up to its value that this owner wants versus what we believe it truly is worth. And then from there, we'll have a conversation with the owner to see what his true expectation on price is, what he's looking to net. And then we'll take that product and talk with specific buyers who we know that's what they're looking for. So, Jake, if you were to tell me, hey, I want 100 units in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Yep.
And, this is what I'm looking for. I want 100 units in Cedar Rapids. I would have, 2 to 3 acquisition reps calling every single owner in Cedar Rapids, Iowa until we got a deal. And every time we got something that was close, I'd call you and say, Jake, we got this 120 unit in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Here's the financials. Take a look at it. Here's what I'm seeing. And you may say, no, this isn't the one. Okay, perfect. We'll take that property, shoot it out to a group of investors. And from there, if someone wants to buy it, we negotiate the commission with the owner. And then we make sure the deal goes from under contract to a close. And then we collect a percentage of what the property's value is as a commission, which ranges anywhere between 1 and 6%.
Absolutely love it.
So that's the brokerage side. And we crank those out all day in Chicagoland from 2 units to 50 units. And then in other states, 100 units plus.
Yep.
And then the other side of the business is, kind of hand in hand. We're having people reach out. So specific areas that we're looking for because we see opportunity. We're buyers in those markets, my partner and I. So we'll have our reps reach out for properties that we're specifically looking for, just like they would with any other client. We're a client to our own business as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we're buying a property right now in Central Illinois that's 36 units. We knew that was right where we wanted to be as far as what we were going to invest cash-wise, and then returns we were looking for, future incomes, future values. So we also take those reps, take those opportunities, buy them ourselves, increase the rents. Once we increase the rents from 800 to 1,000, let's say, it's going to increase the value from X percent to Y percent, or value to value. And then we will refinance the money out from that to get our entire down payment back. And then as we buy the property, we will also do something called cost segregation, which is going to essentially take a percentage of that property's value and write it off on our taxes. So this could be good for a lot of medical device sales reps too, because a lot of you guys have 1099 income, right? So at the end
just
of the year,
I just have to put this, we're literally doing this right now. So I want everybody to hear this. Like, we also go get some real estate and do some stuff. Literally the whole reason we're doing that from taxes and all the stuff is the cross seg that will now save us in the taxes. And just so you guys know, little thing from the wise, from what I've learned, being rich and being the wealthy, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. So I just want to put that out there, but sorry to cut you off, but I had to put that out there because I'm literally doing it. And the whole reason we did it was for the cross seg.
Yes, exactly. And I'm actually working with a med device sales rep right now who I used to work with at Stryker. We just closed his first building. He's going to be doing something very similar. One quick example is and we'll just use our example. We're buying a $1.2 million property. We just got it appraised at 1.4, so that's good news. But 1.2 million, the cost seg is going to give us about 30% of that building's value to write off in taxes that first year. So 400 grand, 300 grand of tax savings in that first year. If you make $1 million and you're going to get taxed 30 or 40%, you're going to have to hand over that 300 grand to Uncle Sam anyways.
Yes.
So it's essentially a decision of, do I want to give it to Uncle Sam, or do I want to buy a building with it?
And give it to yourself.
And give it to yourself, exactly. And your kids or whoever you're going to pass the building on to. So you get to write off that amount. You're going to go in, you're going to increase the rents, therefore increasing the cap rate or increasing the return, which is then going to give you a higher value when you get the building reappraised for a refinance. It goes into cap rates, specific stuff that we don't want to get into right here, but always happy to get on if anybody wants to talk about it. But essentially, we're going to raise the rents, therefore increasing the value of the property. So when we do refinance, we're going to pull out all of our down payment and then some. So essentially, we took our 300 grand down payment, put it into this building, cost segregated the building, so we don't have to pay that 300 grand to the government, to Uncle Sam. And then we're going to increase the values, make the place a little bit nicer, and then refinance and take that same 300 grand and pull it out, essentially legally washing our own money, keeping it. And now, after we just put our 300 grand through this ring of fire, we're going to cash flow on this building every single month and, take that gain.
First off, sounds like a pretty good deal. Second off, just so everyone knows, we are not CPAs. We are not giving you tax or any advice to go purchase and do all of this stuff. So just so you all know it and it is documented, we are not telling you to do all this. This is what Anthony does, and this is how they're able to make their money and do all this stuff. And this is what we do. Absolutely love it. And just so you guys know, I hope you really hear at Anthony at 28 years old, what he just did was blow a lot of your minds and be like, how does he know that? How is he so smart? And it goes back to what I just want to touch on, man. It's why I really was so excited to have you on the program is you're just an absolute killer. You're an absolute stud that you just go make things happen. And it's happened at a young age because I also don't know one wrestler who wrestled in college who isn't a hard worker and will actually do the most insane things to make weight and do all the things that they need to make happen. So I just want to say, man, like it's an absolute pleasure. Now, the more important thing for me is we not only have people wanting to break into medical device sales that are going to watch this later, but we also have people in med device sales. They could be in their first year. They could be in their third, fourth, fifth year. We have people from all over, but they might want to reach out to you because they already are making some money and this might be something they want to get into, or they might actually already have money. Because I remember my first time in med device sales, just so you guys all know, this is never a brag, but I just never forget my first time. I was like, I'm going to save up 100K. I remember saving up and I remember being like, what do I do with it now? I saved it. That was like a goal of mine. So I didn't want to be broke. But then I was like, now what the heck do I do with it? And I actually had more stress with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? And so maybe there's someone that can reach out. Anthony, where can they find you, find what you guys do, and reach out to you all?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, AJ Commercial Group. You can just Google search that. We're building our platforms right now, so you should be able to easily find us there. You can message us through there. You can also email me directly if you have any questions or if you want to just book a time to talk, go over opportunities, or just figure out where you could be in a real estate journey with the money that you're making in med device sales. So that email is going to be amunoz, AMUNOZ, at ajcommercialgroup.com. So email me, reach out on any of our social platforms, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome, guys. And just so you know, my big thing to everyone is please don't reach out to Anthony if you aren't in med device sales and don't have any money. Now, if you're outside of med device sales and have a bunch of money, go do your thing, right? I'm just saying if you're making under 100K, you don't have 100K to go spend or do stuff, please just respect his time. They are busy. They're doing stuff. That's really just to like go learn. But if you are somebody who's in med device sales, you are saving a lot of money. You are starting to make some, like we just got one of our 22-year-olds hired at 148K. Well, that's pretty fun at 22 years old, coming in as a full line rep, making six figures. We already have the talk. I'm like, dude, by 30, you're going to be well over a millionaire. Because if you just live like a broke man, live off 40, 50K and just save the rest, you're going to be doing just fine here. Please just make sure you always respect Anthony's time, everybody that we have, because I really appreciate it. But Anthony, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time. I know you're extremely busy. I know you guys have a lot going on. And it's just an absolute pleasure of watching another young person go and absolutely crush it and not have all these ceilings on themselves saying they can't do something. You are just a doer. You make things happen, and to see you have success in med device sales, but also make the transition out and now have success in what you're doing in real estate. It's awesome. And I just want to say congratulations. And again, thank you for coming on here.
Jake, I appreciate it, man. You were awesome. This was awesome. And looking forward to keep on talking and learning more about what you guys are doing. And yeah, appreciate it, man. Seriously, appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you to all of you that are listening. If you guys liked this, please press that like and subscribe button. And if you guys are looking to learn more, you guys can go check out the link down below. But also, you guys can go check out this video where we're going to just go into a little bit more financial advising, just so you guys can understand if you do want to start planning in the future. You guys can just click the link right here, the video down below, to help you guys with that. But until next time, keep crushing it, keep going after your dreams, go hit quota, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.